Well, internet, looks like I'm back again, doing another one of these videos. I could be making content about how leftists can start organizing, or I could be doing more stuff about unions, or, you know, how to get involved with direct action, but, of course, the algorithm doesn't like that stuff. It loves stuff like this. Drama. Nonsense. And it's all because of a group of guys that monopolize the online left-wing politics space, are increasingly ineffectual, perpetuate harmful behaviors, and haven't actually done that much to change that scene since Gamergate. That's right, gang. We're doing another video about debate bros. This time, we're talking about Xanderhal and how he is not your ally.
Don't believe it.
Xanderhal. Most people know him as the cheeky young debate bro regular guy who likes to smonk.
And
Absolutely.
going along with what they're saying, but not actually.
Or from his alt-right pipeline video where he congratulates himself on not being a fascist anymore. What a cool and normal thing to be proud of. Well done for doing the bare minimum, bro. If you're on the left that doesn't really follow the debate scene, you're probably wondering what all the fuss is about. But if you're into the debate scene, you'll probably know him as wannabe Vaush, as this is what most debate fans have been calling him for the last few years. People call him things like the Zoomer version of Vaush, or that he's copying Vaush's style, which is hilarious, to be honest, because Vaush copied Destiny's style, and Destiny copied the modern debate format, and they copied the Greco-Roman debate format. I digress a little bit, but you see what I'm saying here. This is a bit of an obtuse thing to criticize him for. Xanderhal is also seemingly surrounded by a bunch of controversial drama that is more often than not true for every debate bro on the internet, and a lot of it is concerning and makes you wonder at all why people think he's even a based dude. So with all that in mind, why do people actually like him? Now, I know some of you are not going to want to hear this, but we have to address the facts here. And that is that when you scroll through Xanderhal's YouTube page, there is actually a lot of cool leftist stuff on there. See, he's making videos here about how Trump is bad, he's sticking up for trans people a lot, and that's all good. People around his age or even a bit older are probably going to see themselves in him a little bit and maybe even see him as a bit of a role model for getting into politics, especially if they're already kind of skewed to the left. He's got a good stream personality, he interacts with chat a lot, and he's generally entertaining in an above average way. He's gained a big following since making content like this, and yes, I know you are going to get more views and subscribers based on bigger content creators that you associate with. I know that from my own experience, however, you can't deny that Xanderhal, well, he knows how to content create. He is an influencer who has a brand and whatnot. However, you'd be right in thinking that amongst these thumbnails, something just doesn't feel quite right. The more and more you scroll, the more and more you start to see things like this. Yeah, like, Twitter discourse could be a bit myopic and wrong, but why are you focusing on this? Okay, that one's a little bit extra. I don't know what that's all about. Okay, he's just made a video in bad faith about one of my friends. Oh, and there's another one. Okay, she's just like obsessed with drama and... Okay, this is fucked up. What is this guy's purpose on this platform? Is he a leftist? Or is he just a leftist some of the time and a piece of shit whenever it suits him? Xanderhal prides himself on debating people who disagree with him on anything in the marketplace of ideas, and he doesn't limit the people he platforms in order to protect his user base. Oh no, he loves debating fascists, especially about the human rights of the people that he claims to support. But why? If he's a leftist, surely he knows that platforming people with strict ideologies becomes more of a battle to convert the opposing person's audience, but actually you've achieved nothing because the supporters of your point of view stay the same and the supporters of your opponent stay the same, but...
The new impressionable viewers that haven't been exposed to either ideology have now been exposed to a violent ideology that will influence them easier and easier depending on their material conditions and prior exposure to fascist ideology in our culture and media that permeates every single ounce of it.
Hey everyone, it's Muel here. What Muel has forgotten is that there are probably a lot of people watching this video who don't understand why the platforming of bad ideas is bad. Debate bros have been taking up space in the online left for some time now, and a lot of their content focuses on debating fascists or conservatives on whether trans people should exist or whether there is actually a white genocide happening. Their entire modus operandi seems to be that we need to convert people who think differently to us. They're obsessed with this idea, even though it was proven wrong 100 years ago by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, who said this. Why should we bother to reply to Kautsky? He would reply to us, and we would have to reply to his reply. There's no end to that. It will be quite enough for us to announce that Kautsky is a traitor to the working class, and everyone will understand everything. And of course, multiple real instances of people that these nerds have debated who have remained steadfast in their fascist opinions. So there you have it. Now you're briefed on the debate person. The type of leftist who simply thrives on drama and doesn't give one iota of shits as to whether people are actually doing on-the-ground organizing, activism, or doing anything progressive at all. They love leftism as an aesthetic, as it were. Anyway, back to Muel. Thanks, Muel. So the question remains, does Xanderhal know that platforming fascists goes against everything that leftists stand for? How many fascists has he de-radicalized? Something that's important to point out is that the de-radicalization of fascists is a very real discussion that leftists are going to have at some point, as Nazi views and ideology have the possibility to outlast the potential revolution or global shift towards more radically left-wing politics. What I do know of this kind of action that exists so far is that it's undertaken mainly by charities like Hope Not Hate, who tend to infiltrate telegram groups of fascists like the BNP or the EDL in the UK, who create disorder and sow dissent amongst the rank and file fash and the movements who are losing faith in them due to the fact that they're not really addressing their material conditions and seem to be focused on something that is more of a losing battle. What is certainly not effective is nerds on the internet debating them, especially when those nerds every now and then let their mask slip a little bit and repeat the same fascist talking points they've been arguing against. No, as you can see here, the debate lord Xanderhal tends to actually just focus on drama, which is annoying because you can see from some of his other videos, he's right about some stuff, which is good. But then, why does he focus on myopic things like people on Twitter not agreeing with him? Why does he use words like woke scold and cry bully? What do those words even mean? Another thing to be aware of when looking at debate bros is their takes. Sometimes their takes are so bizarre that they make no sense whatsoever. For example, this video where Xanderhal clickbaits you into all hell with the title, My Controversial Take on Platforming Joe Rogan. His hot take is that Joe Rogan is an irresponsible platformer, but shouldn't lose his platform because he's a good interviewer? Now, for a start, Joe Rogan is not a good interviewer. He's a stoner that sits there and goes, "Hey, you ever seen a chimp pilot a jet on DMT?" And if he's irresponsible at platforming people, why then should he keep his platform? I think one of the funniest and most telling things about this video in particular is that Xanderhal is sat there in a Shadow the Hedgehog onesie. You know, Shadow the Hedgehog, the ambivalent, cool, and edgy character from the Sonic the Hedgehog series that doesn't really care about good or evil. He's too cool for that shit. Whilst Xanderhal is sat there being ambivalent and edgy and not really caring about good or evil because he's too cool for that shit. So anyway, why has he said this? What's the point?
Joe Rogan had this one actual scientist or an actual physicist or something on his show. This is a smart guy that's being interviewed here that I wish I could talk to because I have a million questions I would ask this guy if I could just talk to him directly. But Joe Rogan literally asked every question I would have asked. And by the end of that episode of his podcast, I don't think there would be any questions I'd have left to ask that guy.
Bro, you're a 23-year-old edgelord that got famous too quick. You're not a good interviewer either. He goes on to say that Rogan's interview with Daryl A. Davis, the black blues and R&B musician who converted KKK members and de-radicalized them, was really good and he was immersed in listening to the story, but that's nothing to do with Joe Rogan. You can go and listen to Daryl A. Davis's story from multiple other sources. We don't need a brain force chugging, steroid smacking moron to show us this, you know? Also, I am an ex-fan of the Joe Rogan experience, and in all the episodes that I watched, and I did watch a lot of Joe Rogan, most of the time Joe just kind of sits there and goes, huh, wow, huh, yeah, whoa. If Joe Rogan's a good interviewer, I'm literally the most best video essayist of all time on the internet. And I know I'm not. So Xanderhal, after blathering on for 2 minutes, not really saying anything of value, decides that if the left banned Joe Rogan from Spotify, that would be political suicide. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, I'll tell you what he means. These debate nerds are always talking about optics. They're always saying that lefties are too much for the average voter. And that's why they focus on myopic issues that like maybe 5 people have spoken about on twitter.com. You know, after they've had baby's first political take and they aren't actually big talking points in the broader left. You see, what they're trying to do is shame lefties into being more palatable to the center-left powers in electoral politics. Not once have these nerds considered that most lefties have abandoned electoral politics in favor of direct action and organizing. Because, you know, we're smart. But it always comes back to this optics shit. Like, we should care about what conservatives and fascists think about us. If it's the left's fault that Joe Rogan gets taken off Spotify and Nazis are frothing at the mouth, why should I care? I would simply have a celebratory wank. But no, the reason that they talk about optics all the time is because they think that you can win fascists over to our side with good optics. You're starting to see how this is all a circle, gang? Debate Nazis, have good optics, destroy other lefties who have bad optics. So let's get into that last part. In this video, Xanderhal talks about his editor, Cherrybread TV, who did a tweet about a bunch of online slang used by queer people, specifically trans people. He then goes on to say that the cancellation that they received for this was outrageous and people lost their minds over it, which he then uses to catapult himself into a rant about how all LGBTQIA+ people online, specifically those that criticize Vaush and other debate bros, are mentally ill and abuse victims and for some reason need online internet points to feel good about themselves. It's extremely fucked up and just more evidence that whenever him and any of his debate bro friends use the term woke scold, what they actually mean is person that is holding me to account. Guess this is my big woke scold moment, eh? Zanny boy. So, huge thing to point out here, claiming that all LGBTQIA+ people are victims of abuse is a huge right-wing conservative talking point, and it's actually the basis for conversion therapy. Conversion therapists tend to point out people's abuse as a reason for them being queer. Not enough attention from daddy? Well, you became gay to get attention from other men. Not enough attention from mum? Well, you became gay to fill the feminine-shaped hole in your life. Not all queer people are victims of abuse, and not all victims of abuse are queer. It's a huge false cause fallacy. You know, correlation is not causation. There's a lot more extremely telling points in this video, so I'm just gonna list all of them off real quick. Xanderhal says at the start of this video that his editor is a quote-unquote bit of a memer, and then immediately talks about how the meme they posted is how, quote, the trans community online is toxic and gatekeepy, which is all in all true for most communities online. It's just interesting how painting this as exclusively a trans problem is his main aim here. It's transphobic. If you're wondering what the problem with that is, it's that it's transphobic. His editor said to him, apparently, I might get cancelled for this, and his response is basically, who cares, Lamau? In their post regarding their apparent cancellation, his editor references Vaush's post that he used as an explanation of using the tactical N-word. And for those of you who are blessed enough to not know what this is a situation where Vaush, in a debate with a fascist, just said the N-word with the hard R, literally just as a tactic to get shock and loads of views and controversy. Yep, and this is something that Xanderhal classifies as a good meme. He also references Vaush's rant about queer people online, which was extremely queerphobic, again, because of what I mentioned previously about attaching toxic online behaviors to one marginalized demographic. It's super annoying because, yes, some people are toxic online, but just log off. You don't have to see those people. This isn't a huge thing to worry about for most people, but you see, the people that Xanderhal's actually talking about here are just people that disagree with him, and he can't have that. Oh no, God forbid. He starts to say that the way to solve this problem is to make sure that there are less transphobic and queerphobic parents out there, kind of trying to reinforce the fact that his de-radicalization is the solution to a lot of problems. Not that, you know, he should reflect on some of the more problematic aspects of his behavior that these so-called woke scolds point out. Now, I'd be lying if I said that people didn't go too far online. Absolutely they do. I've seen hundreds and thousands of baby's first political opinion, and people who really go ham and puritanical on issues that aren't really that much of an issue once you put them under a close analysis. But if I thought that people doing that was a problem, I'd be doing a video about them and not debate bros. It's good that people are exploring the boundaries of our language and how the roots of certain words can be harming people and how certain attitudes and behaviors need to be changed. It shows that our culture is evolving into one that's based on love and compassion rather than hateful exclusion. And it can also show that we have a long way to go when it comes to people resorting to puritanical, Protestant, colonialist rhetoric when trying to change people's minds about things. But that's all by the by. There's one thing that's extra telling in this video. He says that woke scolds need to be de-radicalized in the same way that Nazis do. So what does that tell us about Xanderhal? So if you're a Xan fan and you've made it this far in the video, I gotta say kudos, because most Debate Bro fans don't really watch the video and simply react to things out of context and then claim that I'm doing the same thing, despite the hours and hours and hours of content that I've watched from your special boy. And some of you sat there saying, well, no, Xanderhal is not a lib, he's not a centrist. What do you mean? He's progressive, he's a leftist. All right, calm down. We're gonna get into it. Just grab a nice drink, some snackies, maybe play your favorite Vibby game while you're watching this video, and we're gonna get into it. Scrolling through Xanderhal's YouTube page, you'll notice that there isn't a lot about his actual views when it comes to material conditions or class consciousness. A lot of his left-wing content is based on civil and human rights, which he kinda shits all over when he does his woke scold content. So let's go right back to his first video that got a ton of views, how I almost became alt-right. He starts off by saying he never really went into politics and had a fairly progressive mom who taught him why it's wrong to be racist, misogynist, and bigoted in general, and that he was super disappointed in the USA and Americans in general when Trump got elected because even he could see that Trump was a bad guy. He then talks about his radicalization through YouTube content. It's so weird listening to this because it's almost like he's talking about himself when he talks about Chris Raygun, who he describes introduced him to alt-right content. He says that Chris described himself as center-left and did a lot of content about how feminism was obsolete in the USA in 2016. Obviously, Xanderhal doesn't do content like that, but he does do content that attacks people that are too left-wing for him or annoy him personally. A lot of similarities, you know? The video is very short, so I'd encourage you to watch it yourself, but the long and short of it is that he went further down the pipeline until Charlottesville and the murder of Heather Heyer, and then he saw that that shit was actually really bad and wrong, so he started to lose faith in it. He then talks about how Destiny pulled him out of the alt-right pipeline. For those of you that are somehow blissfully unaware of Density, here is a quick recap. He started making content on Twitch when it was still Justin.tv. He did like StarCraft 2 matches, and he started doing debate content around 2016. Destiny apparently referred to himself as a libertarian before this, but then called himself a liberal when he heard another streamer call another streamer the F word. Anyway, in Destiny's debate content, he did a lot of arguing against white supremacists and alt-right figureheads. But now, here's the key thing about this, he kinda always did this from the center ground. Destiny has also admitted to using slurs in private and has defended this, in fact, in multiple debates. He's never been a communist or a socialist or an anarchist, and has in fact argued against those ideologies from a capitalist viewpoint for a long time. In fact, Destiny is quoted as saying this about the George Floyd uprisings.
The rioting needs to fucking stop. And if that means like white redneck fucking militia dudes out there mowing down dipshit protesters that think that they can torch buildings at 10 p.m., then at this point they have my fucking blessing, because holy shit, this fucking shit needs to stop. It needed to stop a long time ago.
So yeah, this is the guy that saved Xanderhal. Neoliberal politics are inherently like this. They say, yes, you can have your rights as long as you shut the fuck up about your queerness, shut the fuck up about your blackness, and do your job until you die in poverty like the wage slave that you are.
Do not question the machine. You are part of the machine.
What's hilarious about this, and the reason that I'm bringing this up, is because this is exactly where Xanderhal sits nowadays. Albeit slightly to the left of Destiny, he does argue in support of trans rights and Black Lives Matter. In a follow-up to this video in the much longer How I Fell Down the Alt-Right Pipeline and Escaped, he immediately starts by saying,
I also wasn't even a leftist when I made those videos. I was still identifying as what I now know to be a neoliberal.
And then claims to have become more progressive, but only really says that he's a leftist and doesn't really go on much from there. He does say that apparently he was planning to read The Conquest of Bread live on stream, but I can't find that on his channel anywhere. So it's likely that he read a bit of it, thought it was going to be too boring, and sacked the idea off. Which is actually fair enough, because I think that reading theory on a live stream is extremely boring content, and I definitely would not be down for that. But it does kind of show that he's not really interested in that stuff, and the vast majority of his other content clearly shows a lack of understanding about how the working class struggle intersects with the civil rights that he supports. What's also interesting to point out is that while Xanderhal says that Destiny saved him from the alt-right pipeline, Xanderhal doesn't appear to have actually ever been debated on his alt-right views. He simply saw an example of right-wing views being torn to shreds in the form of Destiny debating a white supremacist. The major difference between this and other forms of de-radicalization is that it simply made him not a Nazi. It didn't make him a communist, an anarchist, or even a socialist. The more and more that Xanderhal gushes about Destiny, it becomes clearer and clearer that he has a deep love for the guy, and that he wants to emulate him in every way. He says that the edginess of Destiny made him think he was cool, and he made a lot of friends in Destiny's Discord server. Now, the next part is extremely interesting. He talks about our schoolboy Sean's video, The Fate of the Frogmen. A video in which Sean talks about the online alt-right and their slow, sad march into irrelevance. And Xan the man says that this was the moment that he truly understood what had happened to him. Basically admitting that Sean, a video essayist, made him really understand what had happened to him versus watching the debate with Destiny, which simply made him stop being a full-on Sieg-heiling Nazi. It's interesting that he talks about learning social structures and disavowing capitalism, but a lot of his content just really isn't about that. One of the most important things to happen over the last year for a lot of leftists is the wave of unionization that's happened across the US and the world. If Xanderhal was covering a lot of this, that'd mean a lot of people learning about a lot of good stuff. He's got one video that's 18 minutes of him covering the Staten Island warehouse unionization, but it's got woefully low views. Hell, I know the feels on that one. My union video and activism content performs terribly. But let's talk about his Joe Biden support. It's so interesting that in this video, quote, "Why I'm not Bernie or bust and you shouldn't be either," Xanderhal talks about how he loves Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden is a creepy old man who has rape allegations against him. But more recently, he just unironically tweets and retweets Joe Biden's Twitter or pro-Democrat stuff. Xan in this video also talks about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and how if she dies while Trump is in office, then women's rights, trans rights, and other civil rights are all on the chopping block. Funny then how all that still kind of happened, but he still supports Joe Biden and the Democrats. He focuses in this video a lot about harm reduction, but the harm has been done. It happened under Joe Biden and the Democrats. And Xanderhal used his platform to tell people that Bernie or bust is a bad thing. Okay, I get it. Not voting for a Democrat in 2020 would have been a disaster. But you didn't need to go full pro-Democrat either. Nuance is a thing, and critical support is a thing. The main thing to take away from Xanderhal in this video is this.
Revolution isn't happening in the foreseeable future. All we can do at this current moment is work within our current electoral system. Anybody who's still Bernie or bust at this point, there's no changing their minds. Fuck them, okay? They don't give a shit about minorities or anybody in this country whose life is on the line in this election.
This is such a reductive take, and again has been proven wrong by the fact that said minorities have suffered under Biden, as we previously discussed. So the question here is this. If Xanderhal loves Bernie so much, why is he so willing to claim that the majority of people who support Bernie don't care about marginalized people's rights? So my theory is this. As we said before, when Xanderhal said he lost a lot of faith in America after Trump was elected, he sees that as the catalyst for him going down the pipeline. So for him, beating Trump is paramount in that election because he sees his radicalization as Trump's fault. Which is true as far as we can tell. Steve Bannon, who I've talked about on the channel before, was a bigwig on Trump's campaign and literally wanted to radicalize gamers to the far right. However, what seems to be more important to Xan than the nuance that Bernie or busters have a point, or that even Bernie or busters do care about marginalized people, is that Trump gets beat in the election. To Xanderhal, this is a cathartic thing that he needs, and to be fair, it actually was for a lot of Americans and people around the world. Especially people in a similar position to Xanderhal who got radicalized by alt-right beliefs and then realized that they've been taken for a ride. It's kind of like revenge for them, if you will. See now, what happens with revenge is that you become a bit blinkered and you lose sight of the bigger picture. Neoliberals are actually primed for this kind of worldview. You know, it's the I'm alright Jack mentality. Also, a bit of a sidetrack, but I just want to point out in this video, he says this.
Nuking Japan was justified, though. It's sort of like a hard discussion, but yeah. From what I've seen with all the arguments, it does seem like the good does outweigh the bad, and it's like the train, it's like the trolley problem, you know. It's a really fucked up situation, but we're not going to talk about that right now.
What? Xanderhal then goes on to talk about all the bad things that are going to happen if Trump gets re-elected, such as the US will slip further into fascism, Roe v. Wade will get overturned, the attacks on LGBTQIA+ people will increase and continue. He also focuses on COVID-19, saying that it will continue to ravage the US unchecked. Let's take a look at what happened under Biden. The US has slipped further into fascism. Roe v. Wade has been overturned. Attacks on LGBTQIA+ people have increased and continued. COVID-19 is still ravaging the US unchecked. What's really interesting about Xanderhal and his ilk is that they are obsessed with electoral politics and seem to see it as the be-all and end-all despite identifying themselves as leftists and in some cases anarchists. From a more critical point of view in which you can easily observe and analyze electoral politics to be milquetoast in achieving anything good at best, we understand that the most important thing to do, especially nowadays, is to organize, create instances of direct action and mutual aid in order to remove dependence on the state, build dual power, and eventually sever all ties with those who claim to govern us. This is the way. While Xan did indeed cover the unionization of the Amazon warehouse on Staten Island, this seems to be the only bit of his content that covers any kind of dual power structures at all. And to be honest, I think this is why Xanderhal and his community have such a hard time listening to marginalized people who criticize him, because his content is focused on working within the system, trying to change said system from within. Kind of like a guy who joins the police force to try and make it better. And just like said cop, you either end up getting bullied out of the force or becoming the thing that you hate. So, I want to preface this segment with this. I'm going to be talking about one of my best friends, Sophie from Mars. She is one of my favorite people. She's one of my co-hosts on Red Planet. She makes me laugh. She has helped me build my channel to what it is today. She reinvigorated my love of all things based, and her eloquent commentary on the state of the world and what needs to be done today in order to improve the lives of people has inspired me to do the activism that I am involved with today. So in short, I'm biased. However, I'm well aware that bad faith actors won't care either way, so of course I'm gonna be biased as fuck in defending my friends. Fuck you. It's rad and cool and good actually to be biased and defend your friends. Also, I think the main thing to point out, in case you didn't figure it out already, is that I'm extremely biased against debate bros anyway. So if your main criticism of this video is that I'm biased, then, well, duh. It's actually cool to be biased against things that are bad. Also, it's one letter away from
Beast.
Xanderhal made a video earlier this year in May. It's called Lefty YouTuber Sophie from Mars is a Lying Joke. Now, I don't know why he didn't put any spaces in Sophie's name there. Just a bit weird, but let's move on. Now, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is how many views this video got. It's over 30,000, and his videos where he talks about unions is at a measly 4K. And I want you to remember this before we get into this segment. Every piece of content that Xanderhal makes where he is attacking a marginalized person, be it a woman, a trans person, a black person, gets so many more views than any of his other content. His followers fucking love drama. Now, this video sucks for many reasons, but let's just have a look at the comments before we watch the video. And there's a reason that I'm doing this, and I'll tell you in a bit. Jesus fucking Christ, the aggression in her tweet. I don't see how people cannot see through such relentless, extreme language. It's a red flag, and I think there's a word for it, but I can't think of it. Oh well. She couldn't just casually hate Vosh. It needs to be a great danger for everyone. Literally worst person ever. Which is wild, coming from someone who made video on Proud Boys. Okay, this one's funny as fuck to begin with, implying that there is aggression in a tweet. The reply is also extra funny because it's like, oh, you know, she's calling out someone who made video on Proud Boys. We don't even know the context of the video. It could be a video like saying that the Proud Boys are good.
It feels a bit disheartening to think of what little chance people give you, but please remember that you're so important and significant that they already have an opinion on you, while at the same time, they're not even known really outside their circle.
Okay, this is super cringe, calling Xanderhal important and significant and then to imply that Sophie's a nobody? Can you not understand numbers? Like, can you not see the difference here? I genuinely don't understand some of this stuff. I imagine Sophie's motivated reasoning is plain to see for most people who are being even slightly critical, so these angry Twitter rants aren't going to be particularly convincing for most. The audience for these tweets has to just be other people who hate Vosh, Xanderhal, etc., which is bizarre. This cottage industry seems organic, because I think most of its contributors seem genuine, but it's functionally the same kind of astroturf entity which artificially gets created in other political online spaces all the time, so I wouldn't rule it out. There can't be much money in the anti-orbital industrial complex, so I just can't see why anyone would participate in it for business reasons, but they do seem determined to make an anti-Vosh Xan the new meta. I don't think it has much chance of success though. Oh boy, where to start with that one? But I'm not really here to debate these comments. I'm just kind of here to show what kind of a picture is being painted about my friend. So let's move on. A lot of essayists just seem to viscerally hate streamers as a group at a level that strikes me as bizarre and unwarranted. What's the dealio? Okay, does this motherfucker know that there are more streamers than Xanderhal and Vosh? Sophie's, as I said, one of my best friends, and I've been a political streamer for most of my content creation career. There are also plenty of other leftist Twitch streamers who do not do debate content. Like, what are you talking about? I think it's honestly the Twitter anti-gaff culture. You get a lot of engagement for, actually comments, and less talented video essayists thrive off that shit. Meanwhile, Twitch is a live format, and every streamer that does it long enough is gonna say some shit that either sounds weird out of context, was wrong but poorly thought out, usually refined later, or just misspoken, so they're an easy target. This is another huge assumption here. As I said, I've been streaming for a long time, 6 years in fact, and no one has out of contexted any of my content, and I know I'm gonna have got some stuff slightly wrong in that time. You ever wonder why it's like always the debate bros that get this kind of stuff? It's always the debate bros who are clipped out of context, or, oh, they just misspoke, it's a live stream format. Everybody's gonna get some stuff wrong eventually. So from all these comments, we're getting something. We're getting a picture of our Sophie. They're building a profile of someone who their debate king does not like. And so it makes it easier for them to not like her either. There are also multiple comments saying, I used to follow Sophie, now I just can't. So what could it have been that Sophie did that was so reprehensible in the eyes of these people? What did she say and why did she say it? From these comments, it really sounds like she's a hypersensitive, overbearing, terminally online monster. So, what is it? What happened? Cherry Bread is quote tweeting Sophie in bad faith here about something that actually happened. Now, I have to bring this up because this is something that's mentioned in this tweet. So, the sex cult stuff. I was actually going to include the sex cult drama in this video, but the main victim who spoke out against this has categorically said that she does not want people making content about what happened to her anymore. And so in situations like this, it's incredibly important to center the victim's voice. So I will not be talking about this stuff. However, with all that in mind and my actual knowledge of what happened, it is a extremely relevant thing for people to bring up about Xanderhal. So apparently just for believing victims, Sophie here is being labeled as a bad faith actor who is spreading lies about the community. Really interesting here that this is about What the Trans, a trans community support network that does a lot of exposés on gender criticals and TERFs. The tweet in question here is when What the Trans asked trans people who support Vosh why they support him when he's been so transphobic in the past. It didn't make sense. What the Trans then talks about is how it was absolutely Vosh fans that Dogpile reported this tweet to get the account suspended. As I said, this is an account that helps trans people a lot. What the Trans even mentions that gender criticals and TERFs normally don't bother mass reporting trans activist accounts. They tend to focus on popular cis allies or popular trans people themselves. I want to draw your attention back to this comment on the video. The aggressive tone being described here is not something that you can take from words on the screen that is Sophie's tweet. However, Xanderhal seems to be trying out for an Oscar here.
His fans are belligerent, obnoxious, creepy chuds who harass and shame other content creators for expressing any disagreement with him in ways no other creator's community ever does. So when Xan first stops reading the tweets in this hilariously villanesque way, he says that, by the way, nothing here makes sense. He's clearly trying to paint her as having a breakdown and being unintelligible. This is something that we see debate bros do a lot, especially when they're attacking trans people who criticize them, trans women specifically. And this is to paint the idea that they're pushing too far in their politics and they spend too much time online and don't really have much interaction in the outside real world. This couldn't be further from the truth, and not just in most of the trans women that debate bros send for online, but Sophie in particular. She has literally 2 videos here of her going and speaking at trans rights protests. This is more activism than I've seen from literally any fucking debate bro. So talking about bad faith, this is bad faith in its entirety. While Xanderhal is talking about this, his chat further adds to the narrative that Sophie is a monster, calling her a psycho amongst other bad faith arguments. Who is this Sophie? It's not the Sophie I know. The one that I've spent literal days with, who loves and cares about her friends. She loves and cares about her comrades so much and is desperate
to get people to change the horrific world that we live in. I certainly wouldn't call her a psycho. Just look at how easily his audience eats this shit up. And remember, this is an audience that has a huge overlap with Destiny and Vorsh. And so this is the main point in the video where I want to show that Xanderhal really doesn't understand the meaning of the word ally. An ally is not someone who uses marginalized people in their community to win arguments or support their biases. It's really funny because in my video that I did on Vorsh, I had so many people in my comments telling me that it's good and correct to criticize Blair White and Candace Owens. And no, for a start, if you're cis and white, it isn't your place to focus on those people. It isn't your place to tell trans people and black people who best represent their community. Of course, those individuals mentioned are wrong about a lot of stuff, and it is an ally's duty to understand that marginalized groups are not monoliths, and that these people don't represent the communities as a whole. No, if you focus on that stuff instead of amplifying and signal boosting and supporting other creators who do that work, you are certainly not an ally. It is absolutely not for cis people to say that a certain trans woman who disagrees with you is unhinged and bad, and then use the example of impressionable people who are already predispositioned to support you in your community in order to say that they are wrong. Where's this overwhelming majority, Zan? Where are the figures? How many trans people are in your audience? And how many trans people support what Sophie has said here? Have you done the research? Have you done the polling? Of course you haven't, because you are the terminally online individual who simply uses queer people for content and doesn't support us in any actual tangible way. And that's the fucking tea. Check out what he says here at the end of him reading the tweets.
Political boundaries are not the line by which you should judge the moral character of YouTubers and streamers in this space, or any public figure.
Yeah. Yes, Xanderhal. You are so right, dude. Xanderhal even says that someone's political beliefs can be a good indication of their moral values, which is pretty funny because he supports the Democrats, unironically, and they are constantly throwing marginalized people under the bus just like him. So later in the video, he says this.
You will find 4 times out of 10, I'd say, that a content creator in your lane that you've discovered who you might want to collab with, become friends with, who you might even find enjoying their content and becoming sort of a fan of in a way, already hates you before you even know their name, or before you even knew they exist.
It's absolutely wild that he said that with no self-reflection on why this would be. Maybe the reason that people don't want to work with you and that your reputation precedes you is because you're a fucking man-child who throws his toys out of the pram every time a woman online disagrees with you. Why would anyone want to work with someone like that, dude? One of the main things to take away from this 13-minute video is that he talks about why Sophie is bad for a grand total of 2 minutes and a couple of seconds, give or take. In those 2 minutes, it's mainly hyperbole and ad hominem attacks. He doesn't deep dive into any of Sophie's content or any of her tweets, he just rambles about how she's a terrible person. Xanderhal also uses a sanist term here in the beginning of his video. The word in itself is widely regarded as a word that should never be used in any context. It's the shortening of schizophrenic. On the point of sanism, Xanderhal seems to really focus on the fact that anyone who disagrees with him has mental issues. Now, as an ADHD, OCD, and anxiety-having boy and big advocate for mental health awareness, what I like to try and remind people as often as I can is that pretty much everybody has mental health issues. It's kind of part and parcel of living under capitalism. So this scapegoat is kind of one that you could use for just about anybody if you do like a minute or 2 of digging into their content or social media posts. Also, this big thing where he implies that people with mental issues need validation from the internet, from fake internet points, is a huge sweeping statement that misses a lot of important things to remember. Namely that not everybody with bad mental health issues is actually on the internet. This paints a pretty bad picture of people like me who suffer from learning disabilities, are neurodivergent, and or suffered from structural sanism and or ableism. The important thing to remember about this is that Sophie, a trans woman, received a relentless amount of harassment, not just from Xanderhal's community, but from debate bro communities as a whole. Just for this thread, this 2 minutes of hyperbole and conjecture have resulted in some of the worst harassment that my friend has ever seen. And if you know about the effects that online harassment has on people, then you don't need me to tell you just how bad that was for Sophie. It actually makes me sick just how easy these nerds could turn their communities against marginalized people who disagree with them. And listen, it doesn't matter if you have disclaimers in your video or in your description saying, please don't harass them, that's not what I want. Because the very nature of drama content and debate culture on the internet has already primed people to behave in that way anyway. So I want to go back to the comment section again here, just to bring this up. She works with BadBunny, that's all you need to know. So his community here are implying that Sophie's relation to Kira Chat's old name BadBunny, and another of my good friends, is another reason for steering clear of her? But what exactly has Kira done? Okay, so the Kira Chat situation is a little bit different to the Sophie situation, and while I don't want to say that one form of harassment is worse than the other with this, I do want to point out that my friend Kira has had outright misogynist harassment directed towards her from huge YouTube channels such as Penguin Zo, aka Critical, the H3H3 podcast, and pretty much every single debate bro you can think of since 2020 and a little bit earlier, I think. I've been in Kira's Twitch community for a good few years now, and of course she is one of my co-hosts on Red Planet. The main issue that these huge YouTubers had with Kira is this clip, that I'm sure some of you even recognize.
How did my whole speech about how I need subs and to keep the stream going if you like the content, blah, 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 how that results in 0 subs? There are regulars here. $5 a month!
Now, as most people in Kira's community know, this attitude that she has is a stream persona. She's got one of the nicest, most understanding communities that I've ever been a part of on Twitch, and she really does a lot of amazing content and shines a light on issues that are woefully underrepresented in the online leftist Twitch space. For example, at the moment, recently, she's been going hard on the Israeli genocide of Palestinians. But for some reason, men on twitch.television and youtube.com cannot stand to see a woman doing political content and just absolutely need to make a takedown video of her because she is just so bad. If BadBunny doesn't have a negative opinion about you, you're not doing enough for progress. Bit of a fucking telling name there, terminally online leftist. Just implying that if she doesn't like you, you're a good person. I wouldn't go after her for being a clout chaser. All YouTubers and Twitch streamers do this to an extent. The difference is that BadBunny has absolutely no principles or ideology other than what her clout notoriety blah. I have no idea who she is, because I really don't care about her. But this behavior reminds me of the quote-unquote inclusive Karens that love the sound of their own voices way too much at retail. I just met one today, and she was ranting about Boots not being inclusive for thick people, which I agreed, and tried to lecture me about shoe size differences for men and women. I just phased out from there. Afterwards, she left 20 pairs of shoes lying all over the floor for me to pick up and resort after she dumped her spiel. That's the kind of energy I'm getting right now. Thank you, Barbara Worst Women. Are you trying to say like whamans? You know, like anti-SJWs do with your name? I don't know what's going on there. So the comments here are positioning her as a clout-chasing woman who simply does things for money and not because she has any actual moral standpoints or ideology at all. So it's also worth mentioning that Kira, just like Xanderhal, had a bit of a chud phase. One that she's actually really open about and references regularly even on her stream today. Which is good to see, because when people are unlearning a lot of the stuff they learned in formative years regarding politics and people's civil rights, they can often forget that it was incredibly easy to fall down the rabbit hole of alt-right opinions. Something that Xanderhal should be incredibly familiar with, no? Considering this. He also said in his last video on Sophie that Hunter Avallone, who is a former right-wing Nazi white supremacist conservative, is an example of someone whose politics were bad but is a good person. But apparently that grace is not extended to Kira Chats. Wonder why? He goes on to say that he found out that he was banned in Kira Chat's stream, and then says...
Now, would you guys like to guess what exactly got me banned and blocked by BadBunny here? Now, it's not because of any... I'm not, like, trans or gay or anything like that, or bi, so it's not because of her bigotry, so I will let you guys know it is not because I am part of any marginalized groups that BadBunny has a bigotry towards.
Well, I see what you've done there, Xanderhal. You have made a loaded statement. You presented our friend Kira as a bigot without actually providing any evidence that she is a bigot now, and that is a reason that she would ban you from her community now. Or that even when she was a bigot in any way, that she would like ban you for being bisexual or trans. He then talks about how she had a bit of banter with him when he went into a stream one day, and she asked him what he was up to today, and when he said he would be streaming later, she popped off at him. Now, it kind of sounds to me like she was having a bit of banter with him, considering that a lot of streamers think that that is self-promo. It literally sounds to me like the kind of joke that me and Kira would share if I went into her chat nowadays, but apparently this was just like lost on Xanderhal. He just like doesn't understand what like having a bit of a laugh is. So just to explain like why Kira might have made a joke about this, there is a certain sect of Twitter where streamers absolutely pop off about the fact that even saying that you are a streamer or mentioning that you might stream at all in another streamer's chat is the worst thing that you could possibly do, and you deserve to be banned from the community for doing that. It's absolutely ridiculous. I have so much to say about streamers who just don't like self-promo, but that's for another fucking time. In all honesty, I think that this was a bit of banter in an attempt to make friends with Xanderhal, who she clearly had heard about previously and knew was a streamer. Then our man Xan says that she started ignoring his messages. Now, listen, Kira's chat goes at 1,000,000 miles an hour, compared to me anyway, and I find it hard to read all the messages in my chat, and I've only got like a half or even a third of what Kira's chat and viewership has been at some points. So that's that explained. He then says that when he realizes that he was blocked by her on Twitter, he went to her stream to ask her while she was live about why he was blocked on Twitter, and he got banned from the Twitch chat too. After which someone told him that she tweeted that she knew that Xanderhal was a creepy debate bro weirdo. And of course, personally, I think that's an absolutely fine reason to ban anybody from your community. Now, what's really fucking frustrating here is that Xanderhal, again, does no self-reflection here and turns to the attack on Kira. Well, he'd already begun the attack at the start of the video, but he then goes hard and brings up her past alt-right opinions. And even brings up some screenshots that are fairly popular amongst people who like to harass her, where she's said slurs in Discord channels. And all he really does here is just say that she's like a clout chaser and a bigot. And he also talks about how he's got like so much evidence that she's like a grifter and a bigot. But this is all stuff that she's done in the past, dude. And it's all stuff that she's apologized for and has done so much work to unlearn and try and make amends for the bad that she did to people, that nothing really stands up regarding that. Like, you don't really have that much evidence that she is a bad person now. You're just pissed off that your reputation in how you're a harmful bastard preceded you once again, and it prevented you from networking with someone who is actually a really cool content creator. And if you want to talk about how people have got evidence that someone is a grifter and a clout-chasing piece of shit, well, I mean, you're watching this video, right? This video in which I wrote 15,000 words about you doing exactly that. But nah, he spends like 10 minutes talking about how she had harmful opinions in the past and does nothing to talk about the fact that she's left all that behind and realized how bad it was. He just skips a bunch of so-called evidence because there's too much of it. Bro, look at the length of this video. You clearly don't care about this as much as you're saying you do. Again, the point he tries to make here is that when people have had bad opinions in the past, you need to hold them to account forever. Despite his love of Hunter Avalone and other right-wingers who have denounced their alt-right past, even though the time period in which these people turned around was more recent than Kira herself. He then plays an old clip in which Kira says she would not have sex with or date a bisexual guy, which is something I, as a bisexual man, am very familiar with as an opinion.
If a guy's like having sex with other guys, and then he's like, oh, maybe I'll try having sex with you, I'm like,
Now, of course, the way that Kira says it here is problematic for many reasons, but again, we're missing the point that this is something she said in the past, and wouldn't dream of saying this nowadays because she understands the harm it would cause. And as a bi guy, I just want to say for anyone listening here, if this is something that you think, fine. I don't want to fuck or date someone who has an opinion like this anyway, and I'm not going to lose sleep about people having opinions like this when I know that there are plenty of people who want to fuck me or date me. But if you change your mind about that and realize why you said those things were bad, then of course I'm ready and willing to forgive you. This is a very popular opinion that people have about M-spec men. It's a common thing, and people are going to have this opinion because they've been conditioned to by the hierarchies of homophobia and the nuclear family that are imposed on us. It's not right, and it needs to change, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done to do that, but in the grand scheme of things, in terms of evidence you could use against Kira to point out that she's a hateful person, this is a reach. I also want to point out that someone in Xanderhal's chat here uses the command clipchimp, and Zan's chatbot responds with an emote and a cheeky little photographer Zan with the word clippers. Now, in Twitch lingo, these are phrases that imply someone needs to clip this content out of context and post it to r/livestreamfails on Reddit, thus instigating harassment towards that person either on Twitter or on their Twitch channel themselves. And you better believe this is something that Kira got harassed for. Albeit, it was a drop in the ocean of the regular harassment that she receives, but that is no excuse. Zan also, for some reason here, says that he doesn't want to come across as defending BadBunny, despite the fact that at the start of the video, he said this.
So BadBunny, I learned about her mostly because of the Destiny drama, and I wasn't entirely convinced by the reasons that Destiny gave for why we ought to dislike BadBunny. Like, it just didn't come off to me as entirely, valid for everybody just all of a sudden decide BadBunny's a piece of shit and just disregard her and refuse to engage with her or anything like that or be friends with her just because Destiny says she's mean or whatever. Like, it just didn't sit well with me.
If you value logic and reason, and that's a thing that debate bros love to talk about, then why wouldn't you take someone's good points along with the bad? Such as what I'm trying to do in this video. But check this out.
Now, a lot of people over the years who have had criticisms of BadBunny have said more or less the exact same thing. And I'll admit that I made a counter argument to this, along with people who would defend BadBunny, that people who have this opinion are probably just being biased by the fact that she's a woman, and that when a woman engages in this type of humor, it comes off as being bitchy or rude or as narcissistic or whatever, but when men do it, it comes off as suave or like, oh, he's kind of a douchebag, but he's funny about it, so it's okay because he's a guy.
He's literally correct here, so why does he go back on it? I'll tell you why he goes back on it and calls her mean, because that is what his entire channel is all about. Drama, clout, revenge, and grift content. And I can say with 10,000% certainty that Kira is not this evil, mean monster that Zan is making her out to be. I've been in hours and hours of Discord calls with her, personal calls, meetings, DMs, and she is one of the sweetest, most lovely people that you could ever meet. This is a character assassination video, and it is inexcusable. Exactly the same as the one he made about Sophie. It's also absolutely ridiculous that he rambles on about Kira just being close to people for clout as well, because he is absolutely close to Vorsh and Destiny for clout too. Like, come on, man. This is all projection, and we can see it a mile off. I also want to make a big point here that Kira's harassment has been so intense that she has lost a lot of her viewers on Twitch and YouTube. Despite the constant barrage of harassment that she gets doing her job on a hourly basis, she has been steadfast in her left-wing opinions, and she is always doing her best to unlearn the harmful behaviors that she had in the past. And she does all this despite the drop in clout that she is supposedly farming from having pretend opinions on the internet. I mean, come on, people, you can clearly see that this is absurd and has no basis in reality. It is simply the systematic destruction of a woman on the internet simply because she chose to be outspoken and make political content. Seriously, if you're watching this and you have any empathy or sympathy for Kira's position at all, please go and show her some love. You won't regret it. She is more than worthy of your time. So there's a little rule of 3 that I'm trying to bring into my content here, and I'm going to try and stick to that going forward. So I'm going to finish this video with a third and final, and perhaps one of the worst character assassinations that Xanderhal has done on his channel. And that is of his ex, Lani. Ooh boy, this is a lot. Strap in, everybody. Lani, aka Pastel Leftist, was Xanderhal's partner for 2.5 years, according to the twitlonger she posted about him in July of this year. She describes how one day a few weeks before the time of the twitlonger, he dumped her via text for apparently lying, stealing, and cheating on him, which is already extremely shitty behavior. Lani says all of this is completely untrue and has no idea where he got all this stuff from, but thinks it might be because a car was broken into one time and all that the people who stole stuff left was his debit card, which she already had permission to use to buy groceries and stuff like that. Lani also goes on to say that Xanderhal has refused to talk to him about any of this and claims that she was a master manipulator, also implying that she sold all the stuff that was stolen from her car for drugs. He demanded that she come home from work and pack all of her stuff, including her 13-year-old cat, into her Ford Focus and leave immediately, which is of course an absurd thing to ask someone on such short notice. She had to move out and couch surf and sleep in her car for a few weeks before she could finally go home, when she realized her room had been trashed and Xanderhal had left with her cat to go and live back at his mum's house. So she moved back into their old apartment and was obviously trying to deal with this sudden shakeup in her life, her happiness, her security, when Xan the man shows up without her cat and told her he was ending the tenancy on the apartment and she needed to move out and be gone the next day. Lani unfortunately was arrested while she was trying to find somewhere to live, as unfortunately she couldn't afford to pay the upkeep on the tags, which is vehicle registration for non-US viewers, on her car, and one of her friends had drugs on him when the cops pulled them up and she had to spend 5 days in a cell. When she made a phone call, she found out that Xanderhal and his mum had completely blocked her or were ignoring her calls. And when she got out of prison and someone managed to take her home, she found out that the locks had been changed and she had no way to get into the apartment. This meant that she was homeless and had none of her belongings. So let's recap real quick. A 2.5-year relationship, the guy ends it out of nowhere via text, claiming that she's doing drugs and stealing from him, literally makes her homeless, and what does he have to say for himself? First things first, gang. I just want to say that making content about your breakup is an extremely ghoulish thing to do. Okay, like making a tweet, going off on a Facebook post, or even an Instagram story is kind of a normal human thing to do. But a 50-minute YouTube video. Not just a 50-minute YouTube video, a 50-minute YouTube video where he is trying to say that he made her homeless for a good reason, and that she had tried to frame him, and that he was trying to debunk some kind of conspiracy against him. This man is insufferable. One thing I've learned from my time as a leftist and doing actual activism out in the real world is it does not matter how much of a piece of shit someone can be. They deserve, at the very least, the basic human rights that every human being deserves. Food, clothing, housing, healthcare. Xanderhal reaching so far into the depths of his cruelty to render his partner homeless is just something that is so sickening to me from so many different angles. It was genuinely hard for me to go through this video, just seeing how smug and comfortable he is, all the while safe in the knowledge that he is going to be fine and his ex-partner is going through one of the worst times of her life. He starts off in this video by saying that early in the relationship, when he moved in with her, they had a trad-con relationship. Now, for those of you that don't know what this means that this is where the man does all the money making and the woman does all the chores around the house, the cooking, the cleaning, something that's known as reproductive labor, because it's normally women in society that have done this thanks to the patriarchy. This is just like a kind of gross dynamic where he has all the power to begin with. But I gotta say, if a couple consents to this and it's something that they're both happy with, then that's absolutely fine. Like, if you have a trad-con relationship like this and you're both safe in the knowledge that you are fine with it and you do not feel oppressed by this, cool, go for it, go for your life. Who am I to say what's right and wrong in a person's relationship? If that works for you, cool. But it does not sound like Xanderhal had a very good knowledge of boundaries and consent when it came to this kind of relationship. He says one of the first things that he noticed when he moved out is that he wasn't seeing as much money coming in as he thought he should be, which is like a very normal thing to happen when you first move out of your parents' gaff and go to live on your own somewhere, or even with a couple. This is called the material conditions of the working class under capitalism, Xanderhal, and I advise you to do some research on it. Of course, it's an incredibly upsetting reality check that someone like Lani understood a lot more than Xanderhal because she has more life experience than him, being an older person than him. So of course, when she explains that to him, that makes a lot of sense as to why she'd say that. But no, of course, Xanderhal is implying here that she is covering up for something, that this is all part of the conspiracy against him. Xanderhal then says that Lani was not giving him the emotional support that he needed, but from the account that Lani gives about their relationship, it really doesn't seem like he was open in his communication about this stuff. It's actually really sad to read this, but here it is. I'll admit that since I started working outside the house, I haven't been as good of a girlfriend to Alex as I'd been in the 2 years prior. During the 2 years of COVID, I was home all the time, constantly available and on call to help with anything he needed. I was mostly happy, but I told him many times about how I felt lonely a lot of the time. Alex is a lot better at talking about himself than he is at listening, and most days he would hardly come out of his room. When I started working again and I made some friends, I stopped being home as often, which made me happier but him miserable. I should have tried harder to find a healthy balance we could both feel good about, but I don't feel like I deserve to have my cat and everything I own taken from me. So it kind of sounds like they came across a very normal problem that happens in relationships that's basically down to toxic masculinity preventing men from asking for their needs directly. What is a little bit more sickening in this situation, though, is that he says the only reason that he moved in with Lani was to escape a living situation with his parents.
My living situation with my parents eventually just got too toxic for me to continue being happy and making content, and I decided that my best course of action was to move away. And so I did. I moved all the way across the country to Palm Springs, California with Lani.
Which is, and I will die on this hill, a fucking terrible reason to move in with someone. It's a great reason to move out on your own, absolutely, but you should not be moving in with someone else just because of that. When you move in with someone that you love, that you're in a romantic or sexual relationship with, you do it because you love them and you care for them and you decide to face this life together, not to escape another shitty living situation. Which, in all honesty, doesn't actually sound like that bad of a situation because his parents took him in straight away after things went wrong with Lani. He also goes on then to say that Lani needed attention, which is like, dude, do you know what relationships are? In fact, even 5 minutes ago, you said that you needed attention from Lani and that she wasn't giving it to you. And apparently that's a valid thing for you to complain about, but not for her. He also does this bizarre mental backflip here saying that
Lani would want attention, despite the fact that both of us were at home all day and we spent tons of time together just by virtue of that.
Like, no, dude, just because you're in the same house as someone or even in the same room doesn't mean that you're doing bonding activities or paying attention to your partner. That is like the laziest relationship I've ever heard of in my entire life. And from what Lani said in a twit longer that we just read out, it kind of sounds like you were just in your room a lot of the time, just doing your own fucking thing. This next part is just absolutely batshit. Like, I really gotta hand it to Xanderhal. Of all the things that he does wrong that I've talked about in this video, this really takes the cake.
While my suspicions became ever increasing, Lani was offered a job cleaning Airbnbs by a friend of hers. She took it, claiming she wanted to be able to get out of the house and make some friends and help make ends meet financially. Lani was now spending most of her time out of the house. In some cases, she would go more than a day without responding to me, and eventually started not coming home. When I'd questioned her about it and she'd actually respond, her reasoning was that she was spending the night on her friend Sarah's couch because they worked together and they were carpooling to save money on gas. I didn't buy it, and the first night that she didn't come home, I started to consider the relationship over. Like,
to consider the relationship over the second that your partner does something that you don't like is so weak, dude. Like, you utter waste man. I couldn't think of a situation that is more childish, ridiculous, and self-serving than a man not even attempting to fix his relationship when his partner is trying to make herself happy on her own. Everything he talks about next, where he says that she wasn't answering his frankly ridiculous text demanding to know where she is. He mentions that Lani shuts him down, saying that he's being controlling, and like, yeah dude, that's because you were being controlling. Demanding to know where your partner is all the time, that's extremely controlling behavior. Again, why are you not doing any self-reflection here, dude? Being completely overbearing in how you smother a partner is absolutely absurd, and you really need to consider that other people need space. Throwing all your toys out of the pram and making her homeless because you simply cannot be bothered to try and make the relationship work is, well, the whole man belongs in the bin. He also complains that Lani took the keys with her every time that she went out, and that meant that he couldn't go out and do stuff, and it just makes me think, dude, are you an actual amoeba? Just get some more keys cut. Speak to the property manager. Like, what do you fucking want, dude? I think that in listening to all this and understanding what's happened here, I've come to the conclusion that Xanderhal made a huge mistake that a lot of people do when they look for a relationship, and that is that he wasn't looking for a partner, he was looking for a mother. This kind of makes sense when Xanderhal talks about the stresses that he had living with his mum. I can actually relate to it a lot, and I did used to exhibit a lot of the same harmful behaviors that he did in like overbearing, needing to know where your partner is all the time, thinking that they're like lying and cheating on you and stuff like that. But my dude, that is a trauma response. And to be fair to myself, I never fucking made anyone homeless. I never made a fucking 50-minute rant video on why doing that was a good thing to do. And this next bit just... ew.
She would constantly use my card to order Grubhub and Uber Eats to places she was cleaning for lunch instead of packing some of the fresh food that she'd bought that was in our fridge and going bad. She'd also constantly leave half-eaten food just sitting on the counter to go bad. She wouldn't even bother just throwing it in the fridge to let it be good for later.
I can't stand people who call themselves leftists and do not understand that people do not want to do reproductive labor. Like, cooking is a whole arse thing, dude. Lots of people get Uber Eats. I'm gonna be getting an Uber Eat after I've recorded this video because I've got no energy to cook. And bear in mind, Lani, again, as he admits, was the entire trad wife ideal. So she was doing all the reproductive labor, she was going out doing a job, and she was trying to socialize. He complains that all the food in the fridge would go bad, and I'm not being funny, man, but like, Xanderhal, have you never been in control of a fridge in your entire life? It happens all the time, because unfortunately capitalism doesn't allow us a lot of time to actually address things like that. Plus, if you've got ADHD like me, planning and cooking is such a drama. When I'm hearing this, I can't help but go back to this clip that I played you earlier.
And
Going along.
And Lani says,
Go to the bathroom. Why can't you ever throw up in the toilet?
like, this is a thing that happens regularly, and this poor woman has to deal with this literal baby man popping whiteys on stream because he smoked too much weed and he just can't make it to the bathroom. So Xanderhal is then talking about how he blocked off all of his PayPal accounts, all the access he knew that Lani had to his money, and then goes on to show a bunch of Cash App transactions made to her account. But hang on a minute, if he just like on a whim decided to like stop her from getting money, which was her only access to money, by the way, especially considering that he thinks that she was lying about the job that she had. And of course, remember chat, her having access to his money was an agreement that they previously had in the relationship, whether it was unspoken or not. What did Xanderhal expect Lani to do when he stopped her from having any access to money whatsoever? No, there was no chance for Lani to plead her case. No chance for her to talk it out with him. No, Xanderhal exacted the same state violence that any sheriff or landlord would do on someone who has not been paying their bills on time. It appears that the same day he did all this and stopped her from having access to money was also the same day that he kicked her out of the apartment. He didn't confront her with the information that he now had, nor did he give her any kind of grace period to find somewhere else to live. He just acted like the most disgusting, entitled, wannabe land baron that you could possibly conceive. Also, this part in the video where he scrolls through the transactions of varying amounts that absolutely can be explained away mostly by the fact that, as he admits earlier in the video, he was the sole breadwinner and gave her free reign of his debit card, with this absurd epic music like he's just solved the mystery of the century as well. It's gross. There's no other way to put it. It's sick. He's a sick misogynist that treats women like shit on and offline. Now, I just want to stress that while this is a really difficult part of the video to go through, I did want to add a little bit of comic relief in here for people, because what kind of a content creator would I be without anything like that? So, here you go. I didn't hear from him at all, except when he would text me to complain about how awful his mum's house is, and how she won't let him go anywhere, and how he's miserable because she won't get him any vapes or weed cartridges. He would only text her about that shit. He is an actual winner. And to be honest, that is on brand, considering a lot of the stuff that we've already gone through. Anyway, let's dive back into this cesspit. When Xan talks about Emily, the friend that Lani had who fell out with her and apparently exposed her gambling and meth problem, I'm skeptical at best. This is a man who's shown his arse regarding how he makes things up about women who he doesn't like so often that you'd have to forgive me that I'm doubtful even in the existence of this person. But let's do a Debate Bro classic and play devil's advocate. I'm sure all of them are here.
1 hour and 7 minutes
into the video. Yep, they're all gonna love this shit. Let's say that this Emily person does exist, and that Xanderhal's right about how Lani stole money off him and that she's got a gambling problem and she's addicted to meth. So, You see, what these leftists in Xanderhal's community who have, for example, demanded Lani do drug tests, harassed her, accused her of grooming him, even though the power balance is in Xanderhal's favor in every single instance of the relationship, and made her online life a living hell after this video's publishing, don't understand, and again, this is the fault of Xanderhal and other debate nerds, is that punitive justice, especially financial violence, aka making someone homeless, is not justice. You don't just become a cop when someone has issues like that. You know better than any fucking cop in the police forces of America or the justice system. Holy fucking shit, touch grass, the lot of you. I swear to God. Apparently this Emily also accuses Lani of getting her ex-boyfriend evicted by not paying the rent on time. This man calls himself a leftist. A leftist. As someone in a tenants union, I cannot stress enough. The only people who evict anybody in this world are either landlords and/or the cops. The idea that this man thinks that it's a tenant's fault when they get evicted fucking boils my blood. How the hell can you call yourself any kind of leftist when you've got an opinion like that? I'd love to hear what Bernie, who apparently Xan really hoped would win in the DNC nominations, would have to say about that. Also, Xan then going on to say that when Lani said she got evicted because her ex was hitting her and abusing her and they were being so loud when they had fights that they got too many noise complaints, he of course says, well, Emily said she made it up, so obviously she did. You fucking piece of shit. He goes on a lengthy diatribe now about credit scores and his hopes and dreams of being able to move to Seattle, and honestly, I just kind of fucking tuned out at this point. It was like 3 a.m. when I was doing this bit in the script, and after everything that he has done to his ex, I honestly do not care, dude. Like, this guy is so focused on like not getting an eviction because it would harm his credit score. I'm just like, bro, you made someone homeless. You made someone homeless and removed access to their money so that they got arrested because they couldn't afford the upkeep on their registration, and now they have a criminal record. What the fuck do you think that does to someone's credit score? What do you think that does to someone's life? Anyway, next, Xanderhal just like admits that Lani told him that she has nowhere to go, and he's just like, I don't care. And then he says this.
She needed to move her stuff out. I don't wish homelessness on anyone, but it just had to happen. Had to happen. Had to happen. Had to happen.
What, all for your fucking credit score, Xan? All because you didn't have the guts to sort out your relationship? Weak, dude. Fucking weak. One of the weirdest things to me that doesn't really add up is that Xanderhal claims that there were eviction notices served to the property that apparently Lani had hid. Like, what would that have achieved? And also, why would she not have mentioned in her twit longer that she would have been worried about getting evicted from the apartment by landlords? When it came down to it, she was evicted eventually anyway. Now, in her twit longer, she claims that Alex and his mum changed the locks to the apartment so that she couldn't get in when she got out of jail. But honestly, knowing landlords as well as I know them now with the work I've done for the tenants union, it's possible that a landlord would have just done that. Possibly because Xanderhal ended the tenancy and kind of like forced all of her stuff to get locked up. But anyway, it's by the by. And to be honest, I guess it's possible, but I don't know why she'd lie about this. And she doesn't exactly try and vilify Xanderhal in this twit longer. In fact, at the end of it, she actually pleads with him to get in contact with her to sort all this mess out. She even says at one point, to be clear, I'm not saying all or even most of this is Alex's fault. He isn't required to help me, but it feels like he is trying to make the hole I'm in impossible to dig my way out of. Also, what's he playing at when he shows this Instagram exchange? Does he think this makes him look like a good person? Of course, his fans don't care, they're gonna support him anyway, but damn, anyone on the outside looking in is gonna see this and be like, yikes. Xanderhal shares some more DMs with people who were like legit concerned about Lani's whereabouts. He underlines this one where a third party, who would be unbiased, says that she was smoking DMT in the car with someone. Xan underlines this and writes doubt here, implying that he thinks that she was smoking meth. Again, let me point this out to everybody. If somebody is addicted to meth, especially if it's someone that you love, that still doesn't make everything that he's doing to her okay. He correctly points out in the video that meth and DMT need a pipe to be smoked in, a crack pipe in particular. And yeah, that's correct. But if you've ever actually been outside in your actual life, you would know that someone on crystal meth behaves extremely differently to someone who is on DMT. So I actually entirely believe that she was smoking DMT and not meth, to be honest. Not that it matters, right? Also, clearly in reference to Alex telling her he's spoken to friends who've been worried about her whereabouts, she says in this screenshot, I spoke to blank, and they said you never spoke to them. I'm confused. Which is clearly, at the very least, an indicator that Xanderhal is not telling the full truth with these screenshots. Xanderhal then admits that he was considering going back to the apartment with the police. A leftist who's done content covering police brutality. He was gonna bring the cops to his ex-girlfriend's place, probably telling them that she'd stolen from him, is addicted to crystal meth, and might be fucking crazy and unhinged. This motherfucker could have got her killed. Also in this next bit, Xanderhal just straight up accuses Lani of setting up a credit card in his name, which is extremely fucking hard to do when you don't have a fixed address. Like, where is she picking up this credit card from, dude? Is she picking this up from, like, the car park where she's sleeping in her car? One of the first things that he says in this video is that he noticed that money was getting drained out of his PayPal account to an unknown source, and that he didn't believe Lani when she said that he might have got hacked. But I've had my PayPal hacked before. A literal Russian child hacked my fucking PayPal in 2014 because I didn't know what I was doing. The little shit used it to pay for gaming subscriptions. It was extremely funny. And in fact, when I contacted PayPal, they sorted it all out immediately. It was pretty fucking good, to be honest. But what I'm trying to point out with this anecdote is that actually, it's entirely possible that someone could have stolen Xanderhal's identity and taken out a credit card in his name. Not just Lani. Next is more unfounded accusations that she was done by the cops for meth. And I gotta say, sharing someone's police report, even though it is public information, as he rightly points out in the video, is just a weird fucking thing to do. It's like being like, here is the official thing that says that my ex is a bad person. Anyway, he says that in the police report that she was definitely done for methamphetamine. Now, look at these police reports. It doesn't say anywhere here that she was done for meth. It says that she was done for being in possession of a controlled substance. You do know what a controlled substance is, don't you, Xanderhal? Many things. But no, Xan the man needs you to think that it is meth. You know, the bad drug that all the crazy, unhinged druggies do. All the crazy, unhinged druggies that steal things and hurt people and rob people and rape people.
Just so they can get their fix.
And making out that Lani is a person like that would fit his narrative pretty conveniently, wouldn't you say? Xanderhal then tells us that he went back to the apartment while she was in jail, and is delighted to tell us that it looked like the aftermath of a frat house party. I'm pretty fucking sure that Xanderhal didn't go to college, so I don't know how he knows what an actual frat house party is, but anyway, that's by the by. And to be honest, if I'd have gone through the shit that Lani had gone through, I would not have an incentive to clean up that house. I would be fucking devastated. I'd probably spend a lot of time just like in bed. Hell, I find it hard enough to clean my house in general with fucking ADHD. And trust me, having ADHD and OCD is a fucking trip. So next he says that he found like some beakers and jars that were in shrink wrap, kind of implying that he thinks that she was going to be synthesizing drugs in the apartment, but probably what was more likely is that she was going to use it for like Etsy store stuff that I think she was doing on the side, because it kind of looks like she was doing that stuff anyway, according to this Twitter post. But honestly, at this point, it really does sound like he's trying to LARP his own Breaking Bad made up fantasy. He even references the show when he's talking about this, and what I want to point out, by the way, is that Xanderhal and his community seem like obsessed with evidence, even if it is like questionable at best. So why do we not have a picture, Xanderhal? Where are the pictures of this supposed meth lab that Lani was making in your fucking ex-apartment? Like, if this happened to me and I went to an old apartment and found some stuff that I didn't recognize in there and I was worried that it was like weird, I would probably take a picture of it so I could ask people and be like, yo, what the fuck is this? He then next talks about how he starts removing all of his possessions, clearly trying to make a statement here that even though they had the agreement that Lani was able to spend his money on the things that she needed, that now all of these things are his, actually. Oh no, oh, you thought that actually I was being nice and these things belong to you. No, they're mine. They're fucking mine. And the way he then talks about how he just went back to his normal life, pretending that none of this stuff happened, is just so disgusting. Where is his empathy? My God, no debrief, no makeup sex, just sweep it all under the carpet. Don't even think about your poor, homeless ex-girlfriend who has no fucking money, has gone to jail, and whose life is falling apart. Just go and fucking make your YouTube videos. Complete refusal to take responsibility of his actions. He tries to cover his tracks here by saying that if she really wanted to, Lani could get in touch with my mum. But even if that's the case, it is so irresponsible to cut off all communication with someone that you had been seeing for 2 years, to not even allow her to make her case. Honestly, gang, I can't get over this. Like, I've had toxic relationships that were 6 months long, where someone had been confirmed by multiple people to have been cheating on me, and I still didn't act like this. I still tried to sort things out with this person. I gave them way more grace than this fucking man could even conceive. This next bit, I'm just gonna let him speak for himself, really.
I have no intent to keep on paying to keep her items in storage. It's burning a hole in my pocket for me to even hold on to these things. I only saved them out of the kindness of my heart to try and be a good person, and it's only gotten me tangled up in more drama. I'd literally have less bullshit to deal with had I let her sentimental, irreplaceable items get trashed in the unit along with the rest of her stuff.
No comment. Lots of notes, by the way, but no comment. I don't really think I need to cover any more of this video than what I've already mentioned, so I'll just leave you with this part. Xan references the twitlonger that Lani made and says that he's proud of his fans for already being skeptical before he'd had the chance to make this video. With that in mind, it's time to wrap this up. The long and short of this stuff is that Xanderhal has fostered a community of liberal toxic masculinity. No one here is listening to the victim. No one at all actually even understands that Lani is a victim. Nor do they understand that Sophie or Kira or the woke scolds that he talked about are also victims. They actually believe that Xanderhal is the victim in all of these situations, despite him having all the power in the situation with Lani and his fans being predispositioned to support him in the case of Sophie, Kira, and the quote-unquote woke scolds. In the situation with Lani, he is your traditionally toxically masculine, head of the household manly man. His community clearly have a sheer lack of understanding of material conditions, human rights, drug use, state violence, and financial violence. Not to mention homelessness, which is a clear indication that he doesn't educate his community on those things. And the fact that he called his video on his breakup debunking the allegations against me sort of implies that there's a conspiracy against him. This is a narrative that he falls back on a lot in his attack hit pieces on people like Sophie and Kira. I imagine he thinks this conspiracy exists because of all the other people on the online left who dislike him for fairly credible reasons. All the things I've mentioned in this video, plus a lot of other stuff that I simply can't mention because otherwise this video would be hours long. There are so many other people that I've not mentioned that Xanderhal has hurt with his ridiculous character assassinations and the harassment of his fans. I think we've covered a lot of facts in this video that point to our man Xan not having really recovered from his alt-right days. His misogyny is still there and he needs to do a lot of work to unlearn his harmful behaviors, plus his aggression towards trans people who disagree with him and his debate bro pals, while simultaneously sticking up for those who do what he says, is clearly an example of his queerphobia not being properly dealt with either. His lack of good grace and faith in attacking Kira shows that he actually doesn't believe his own mantra that you can debate Nazis in the marketplace of ideas and convert them, because apparently someone having said bad stuff in the past is absolutely inexcusable if it's a woman that he doesn't like. When Xan attacks people he doesn't like, there's a whole lot of projection going on. He calls Kira a terrible person who doesn't deserve redemption from her days as an alt-writer. He says that Sophie might have some good political opinions, but she's a terrible person. He calls Lani a master manipulator and implies that she was a terrible partner. He says that woke scolds are mentally ill people who need validation from the internet because they never go outside. These are all things that could be applied to Xanderhal himself. All this, coupled with a refusal to self-reflect, simply means that he's a narrow-minded man who's stuck in his own bizarre world of failed Minecraft YouTuber dreams and mummy issues. And it's sad. Lots of people like Xanderhal because, like his debate bro friends, they offer a window into politics where you don't actually have to do anything, except for what the system says you can already do, and this makes them feel like they're making a difference in a world that they correctly know is bad. He reinforces the belief that you can change the system from within the system. And people love that. Because people with privilege and comfort don't want to do anything other than what they already do. They don't want to change their mind too much. They enjoy the cruelty and puritanical cult-like behavior that's encouraged in white Western colonial society. He reinforces their prejudice and basically makes them feel like they're doing an activism, whereas really they just have posting disease, thinking that you can change the world with minimal online activity. It's arguable that Xanderhal does nothing for progress despite his progressive opinions about race, gender, and sexuality. The dogpiling he encourages on marginalised people pretty much cancels out the perceived good work that he does. But there's a reason for all this being the focus of the content. We already know he was struggling for money living out with Lani, and of course he knows that having centrist drama-based content is a lot more lucrative because, well, simply put, people are ghouls and they love that shit. The debate scene is something that reinforces this observation because people like Destiny and Vosh rake in sizable incomes for having paper-thin positions and wildly fluctuating moral compasses, which reinforce the biases of their mostly centrist neoliberal viewers. And people love the drama, the blood sport of the debate community. And ultimately, It doesn't get us anywhere. As mentioned earlier, there is no actual evidence that says that debate stops people from having bigoted opinions, nor does it stop them from hiding them. No, lots of people let those opinions out when somebody upsets them, as we've seen with our Zanny man. My friends Sophie and Kira have spoke to me in private about the harassment that they've gotten from Xanderhal's community, and it is fucking heartbreaking. These are not people that need any more shit in their lives, Xanderhal. These are phenomenal people and allies who would have supported you and fought for you if you'd only just done a little bit of work to unlearn those harmful behaviors, take some criticism on the chin, and apologize. It's that shitty debate bro mentality you've got of never conceding and never showing weakness. It doesn't help anybody, including you. I actually started making content criticizing the debate circuit because of the tweet that Sophie made that you unceremoniously blasted and sent your community after her for. I already knew that debate bros were a farce in terms of their progression for the left, but that harassment and hate that you sent my friend's way radicalized me against the debate bro circuit in its entirety. I don't want to be doing hour-plus long videos about nerds who just need to fucking log off for a month and read some theory. I want to be doing content about how we can literally change the world and all the awesome activism that people are doing right now. I want to restore people's faith in humanity, but you and your mates are clogging up the online political space and hurting people, and it's gotta fucking stop. You even said yourself how disappointed you are that the majority of people end up disliking you before you've even got a chance to get to know them. Ugh, who am I kidding? He's not even fucking watching the video, is he? He won't even watch this shit the entire way through. All in all, when Xanderhal talks about why he started streaming, his political journey and what happened to him during that journey, plus his hopes and dreams, I find myself relating to him a lot. Like, we started streaming for the same reasons. He wanted to be a gaming streamer, so did I. He got into politics because he realized there was something up with the world, so did I. He enjoys what he does in the politics scene, so do I. So how did Xan get so close but so far from being super based? I'm literally 10 years older than Xanderhal, but I've got a lot of faith in Zoomers. They seem to be really well politically aligned, far more so than millennials. But with Xanderhal, I just feel this huge disappointment. This video isn't an attempt at cancellation because, hell, as we all know, that doesn't work. This is just to point out to everyone, including Xanderhal, that the debate bro circuit and debate culture as a whole has got some extremely harmful behaviors that need to stop. If you've been on the fence about Xanderhal, or even if you've been watching this whole thing, foaming at the mouth, raging that I dare criticize him, all I want is for you to consider what I've said. It doesn't matter in the long run if you change your minds, because I know that people are eventually going to move away from debate bro content. The world is changing in vast, phenomenal ways, and we're on the precipice of something amazing. And most people will forget all this drama content. They'll forget all the debate bros, all the drama channels, and communities will thrive and support each other under the worsening material conditions of global capitalism. There's so much more that you can use your online influence for. People are doing amazing things all across the world, and you could be covering that and giving hope to people. All I've seen in Xanderhal's comments over the last month of researching for this video is people complaining that the left is fracturing, and nothing will get done while the left is always fighting like this. And well, that's just not true. Despite all this terminally online bullshit, people are making headway. People are waking up to the fact that their governments don't care about them. People are taking matters into their own hands and looking after each other. Xanderhal's audience and the entire debate bro audience are caught in a spiral of doomerism, but it could all change overnight. Just think about it. Seriously. Thank you so much for watching this, everyone. Holy shit, this is like the longest video I've ever made. Look at the fucking word count for this script. Jesus Christ. Now, listen, I'm not being funny, but I deserve a few new patrons for this. No, but seriously, thank you so much to my patrons who've supported me. This video couldn't have got done without you, and the supporters that I've got on Twitch who keep me financially stable and allow me to do a job that I fucking love. So please, please, please consider becoming a patron or supporting me on Twitch or even donating directly to my PayPal. All the links to do that stuff is going to be in the comments, and there's going to be some in the cards at the end of the video. And if you want to see more content and you want to support me on other platforms, check out down below in the description. All my other social media is down there for you to check out. You can check out the VOD channel if you can't make my Twitch streams, which are every Monday to Thursday from 7 PM British summertime till late. And thank you so much to the people who've supported me in this content. Thank you to Noah Samson, thank you to Sophie from Mars, thank you so much to Mildred aka Thought Slime, and thank you to Kira Chats. And a special thanks to Nico Girl, who's done a lot of answering of questions for me about the debate circuit at large, basically. Like, thank you so much for enlightening me about a lot of stuff that I didn't know about. You can find links to all their channels down below, or even just like on the fucking main page of my channel and stuff like that. And if there's anyone I've missed out, I'll mention them down in the description. Honestly, I'm just so fucking tired from recording this. I need a treat. I need like a nice pastry. If you want to get exclusive updates on stuff like when my next video is going to come out, or what my next video is about, or behind the scenes stuff, please consider becoming a patron. Check out the Patreon, and don't forget to check out Red Planet pretty much every Sunday at 8 p.m. Things have been a bit hard for Red Planet at the minute. We've not been doing many shows because of various things, personal issues, people needing to take breaks and stuff like that. I love Red Planet. It's one of the best things that I do. Easily one of the best things that I'm part of. But we are making headway with making new episodes and finding new guests. So please stay tuned and check out Kira Chats' YouTube channel, where all of the VODs are stored. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Stay excellent to each other. Peace.
Once again, back is the incredible.